Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the Pro Wrestling Logic YouTube channel. Welcome to those of you who are new. Welcome back to those of you who are veterans of what we do around here. We cover both modern day and old school professional wrestling programs in form of review. We also have an interview section, which I'm hoping to bolster as we go into the fall season. In any event, this is the 27th of February in 1982 version of World Class Championship Wrestling. As mentioned in previous reviews, they don't have exactly every show up, and I'm wondering if it's not the case of they don't have all of the different tapes available, like they reuse tapes maybe in 82. I know many promotions did this, and I'm thinking that ultimately that's the way that this might have gone. I'm just thinking that because it seems like there is a decent space between companies or episodes that's pretty pronounced here in 82. Maybe they start saving things a little bit later. But anyway, suffice to say, it's frustrating. Anyhow, we move into the first victory or first match of the evening on this particular occasion, and that being the former Americans champion Bugsy McGraw, who lost to Kerry Von Erich, we learn. Anyway, that leads to McGraw having a competitive match, which strikes me as odd, with Jesse Leon. Leon predominantly a enhancement talent at this point, and that's why for him to have just been a champion and to be moving into a situation with Leon where there is literally a almost 9+ minute match, which is relatively a basic match, but still for Leon, who is enhancement talent maybe one level above, to go 8-9 minutes with Bugsy McGraw as a former champion struck me as odd here. McGraw, again, a Eugene-style character who becomes more verbose in the nature of the next several years, but here, still with heelish tendencies, although well-liked. Lots of arm drags, lots of chin locks, and wear down holds, and again, they get 60 to 90 seconds out of these. The crowd's still with them. I know people say that can't work today, but I think if you're working the holds right and you update what the holds are, I think it can work today. McGraw liberally uses the turnbuckle pads as a weapon, and that's a pretty big deal. Then he uses a top rope splash, which is awkward looking, which I actually like. I mean, a guy who I'm guessing is easily north of 40, maybe north of 50 at this point, should have some difficulty with a top rope splash, one would think. Then we move on to what I thought the best part of the program was, that being the interview with Gary Hart, introducing who is now King Kong Bundy. We do not see in previous episodes, there's a missed turn on one of the Von Erichs that Bundy executes at the bequest of Hart. Hart does a phenomenal promo here, worth going out of your way to see. Says that everybody knows what money is, he knows what wrestling talent is, and he knows that there's much more in Bundy not wearing overalls and potato sacks, but wearing wrestling gear and being a monster. He obviously has quite a memorable run in World Class before going to Mid-South and then the World Wrestling Federation at a later point. We then move on to the match between Al Madril and Captain Frank Dusek, with Bill Irwin as his manager slash second. I don't quite understand the concept of 1 week a manager, next week a wrestler, and back and forth. Perhaps someone who is more familiar with the territory can explain this concept to my poor brain that doesn't understand this. But anyway, this is a continuation of the match itself, or the previous week's matchup, and very basic match. Madrill, rather a boring fellow, who is not a guy that you really want to see a lot of unless you're quite bored. There is a very basic match here. Madrill taking the majority of the punishment for a good bit, and then Dusick introducing some sort of weapon, almost like a mini belt, although the camera doesn't get a real uptake on it or a view of it. So I'm assuming it's some sort of strap or something. And Madrill catches him with it. The referee catches Dusick using the weapon, and actually, it looks like a little mini nightstick or something. In any event, Madrill gets the disqualification victory. Not a match worth really running out of your way to see. Then we go to a interview with good old Fritz von Erich, the patriarch of the von Erich family, and he is very disappointed in King Kong Bundy. What is interesting to me is he does not mention until this moment that he is, in fact, was questioning Bundy's integrity and intentions in what he now, a few months later, calls forcing himself into the von Erich family, and then attacking Kevin. Certainly an issue there as a little bit of a plot line hole, which doesn't happen nearly as much as it does today, but it does happen. And he is sure that his boys, who are all doing well according to Fritz, will in fact get even with Hart and Bundy. He mentions having issues with Gary Hart going back 20 years. I can't imagine a feud these days going 20 weeks. But something that carries on in one territory, or predominantly one territory, for 20 years is just a phenomenal feat. In any event, we go into a King Kong Bundy match as he defeats the masked superstar El Negro Assassin. Of course, championed and seconded by none other than Gary Hart. Bundy has what I consider to be a goofy match. I consider it to be goofy because Bundy, who is portrayed as being 450 pounds and 6'7" and etc. and so forth, is also portrayed in this particular series of events as having trouble with the masked superstar, even though he had defeated him in a handicapped match just a few weeks prior. This just does not make any sense, and there's actually a point in the match where Bundy hits the avalanche in the corner. That is not the finish. The finish of the match is, in fact, I think another form of a splash. Let me go back and check here real quickly, but Bundy does do a suplex from the outside of the ring into the ring, which we've seen many times before, but there is a grappling and a fight between the two, which is good to see and helpful to see. Bundy does attack his adversary with a couple parting shots after the match, and Bundy, yes, in fact, does hit a big splash off the ropes for the victory, and even counts along with the referee for 3. Then we see a non-title affair in your main event of the evening, as the Von Erich boys, who always seem to make their way to the main events of world-class programming. Big surprise. Kevin Von Erich this time, facing off against Wild Bill Irwin, who is the Texas heavyweight champion at the time. Very basic match, lots of brawling. Obviously, the Von Erich Claw comes into effect several times during the contest, but then we see Irwin having help from Dusek on the outside, leading to a disqualification. Kevin brings the match back around into the direction of going his way. Actually, the disqualification is called for. The referee calls for it. Kevin does not want it to end that way. Calls who he calls Chauncey, which we've talked about before, back into the ring. And Dusek and Irwin are not happy with this. They go right up to the end of the program, and we see a time limit draw as the program closes. I don't know why, if you're going to go through, you don't do that in a manner without the interruption in the match. Maybe they wanted extra excitement, but Kevin is certainly saying he wants another opportunity at the Texas champion somewhere down the road to close the program. Once again, this is your February 27th edition of World Class Championship Wrestling. We'll be back with the March 13th edition momentarily, but until then, keep your feet on the ground, your mind in the moment. Until next time, everybody.